The Alison Bailey case now from Thursday's Daily Mail. Nick, this is a big story.
Yeah, victory for free speech and women, my two favourite things. And this is Alison Bailey. And you know loads about this case, Andrew, so I hardly need to tell you, but I'll tell the viewer because she's won this case against Garden Court Chambers. This all kicked off. She was a founder of is a founder of the LGBT... What's it called?
LGBT
the LGBT Alliance. Thank you very much. And as soon as she announced that she was part of the LGBT Alliance, Garden Court Chambers put these tweets out about her, saying they were going to investigate her. And then she's won $22,000 in damages against them. She hasn't actually won the case technically against Stonewall, but it doesn't look very good for Stonewall because they were the ones advising the Garden Court Chambers. I think there was an email, I think from her in 2018, correct me if I'm wrong, saying that they shouldn't get involved with them as diversity champions. This diversity champion scheme we've talked about before, which is a bit this dodgy scheme where Stonewall says, you can be a diversity champion. How do you do that? Oh, you get training from Stonewall that you have to pay for. So this is Stonewall. You know, hopefully this is hopefully it's another death blow for Stonewall because, you know, the other day we saw the tweet, I've got it here from them, when they said research suggests that children as young as 2 recognise their trans identity, yet many nurseries and schools teach a binary understanding of pre-assigned gender. So they then had to walk that back, and they said, on Friday we put out a tweet that was unclear. It's like, no, it was clear, bro.
It was pretty clear.
You want to move on to try and trans 2-year-olds because that's your market.
So this is
incredibly sick.
And this, you know, there is a real problem. You know, increasingly, as I was talking about on my show on Sunday, increasingly gay people don't feel that Stonewall represents them, actually works against their interests. But this case is a particularly interesting one, isn't it? Because the way in which people have spun it. So Stonewall have said it's a victory for Stonewall because obviously she was suing Garden Court Chambers and Stonewall, but she lost against Stonewall but won against Garden Court Chambers. But of course, what that means is that the court said, yes, the advice from Stonewall was wrong, was unlawful, they were misrepresenting the law, etc. But the Garden Court Chambers didn't have to take the advice of Stonewall, so the responsibility lies with them. But for Stonewall to claim this as a victory is insane because they've just cost Garden Court Chambers with their shoddy advice a fortune. And all of these other companies that currently have the Diversity Champion scheme surely are going to back away at this point, Steve.
So the best case scenario would be that it's a PR loss because legally, I think this article in the Times actually goes through step by step and looks at the legal problems.
Yes.
And therefore, the outcome might not be what the headlines look like, what other newspapers might report. But in part, that's because of the difficulty of making that legal thing stick.
But isn't it more than PR? I mean, they have been accused again and again, Stonewall that is, of misrepresenting equality law for their own ideological purposes, right? They've been accused of effectively lobbying, rewarding the Scottish government with extra points in their index if they agitate to change the law according to what Stonewall wants. This is all very dodgy, slippery stuff.
I take that point, but anything lower than a legal outcome is just PR, isn't it? I don't know if there is a gap in between.
Okay, no, that could be the case, but surely, okay, let's say it is PR. Bad PR of this kind, when you are advertising your services to advise on equality law and a court says you are getting that wrong and this company is now going to have to pay millions, that's not, or whatever it is, I don't know how much they're paying, but that is such bad PR because that's their sole raison d'etre, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also it shouldn't have been before, but and yet somehow is now.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
And BBC obviously backed out of the diversity scheme last year.
Yeah.
And Liz Truss, like you said, advised lots of people to back out of it, although a disturbing amount still remain in it.
I mean, loads.
Yes. Was it 327 you said in one or something like that?
There's 320 odd. The Foreign Office is still there, the Department of Work and Transport. Yeah. It goes on and on. The House of Lords, the Labour Party in its entirety, the Green Party, the SNP. I mean, the extent of Stonewall's influence and reach is so extreme. But we have to reach a point where whatever you feel, whether you support Stonewall or whether you don't, we have to accept, don't we, that they are massively divisive. They just are.
Absolutely.
And also, the point from this story is, regardless of your opinion on the details of the story, one of the outcomes is you shouldn't lose work because of it.
Right.
And I think that is a solid foundation to then have a discussion.
Let's bring it back to Alison Bailey here because, black lesbian who was effectively, she claims, was targeted by Stonewall. Stonewall basically tried to stir up trouble and get her in trouble with her employers. That was the claim. And look, shouldn't Stonewall be defending people like Alison Bailey, people who have been fighting for gay rights for decades, is a stalwart of the cause, and is a black lesbian?
You'd think, but didn't you say that up until 2015 they were perhaps doing that, and then they moved on their focus onto trans issues because they kind of completed, that had been completed, so it's like, oh, we still need a reason to exist. So, yeah, I think Bailey sums it up really well here, by the way, just to sum up what we've said, when she said that she's exceeded in exposing Stonewall's conduct and the enormous, to my mind, malign influence it wields in the workplace and in society more generally. So that's it. She has technically lost the case against Stonewall, but she's exposed what they're up to.
Absolutely. I think what this proves, though, is that when you do try to put the LGB with the T, you're fighting for two very different campaigns. You know, gender identity is unrelated to sexual orientation. They're different causes. So the solution surely is that we have gay rights campaigns groups like LGBT Alliance, and we have trans rights campaign groups like Mermaids, and they can both lobby for what they want. But conflating them, as Stonewall have done, I think it's proven it doesn't work, right? Right. Well, that's my rant over on that.